Welcome to Up Your Nerd Cred. Did you used to know everything in the Marvel and DC universes? Did finding out that some superheroes are from Marvel and some are from DC blow your mind? Has keeping track of everything happening there and then realizing we're talking about the comic universes and not the cinematic ones, and the different universes with their own multi-universal crisis gotten a little bit out of hand? Don't worry. Up Your Nerd Cred is here to talk about the gods cosplaying as men, the men cosplaying as gods, and how much the cinematic universes are really leaving out. At the end of each episode, you'll hopefully know a little bit more than you did, and you can up your nerd cred. I am your expert nerd host, AM Diaz, who is currently stressing out as we near the first major convention of 2026. And Con Crunch is real and it is stressful.
And I'm your casual nerd host, CiCi. It was snowing in New York City this week. There was snow and rain simultaneously. So snaining. It was very weird because it was like in the 60s earlier this week. But also, don't let this man downplay his expert status, okay? It's why we ask him the burning questions each week.
Or rather, this week, we'll be asking our special guest all kinds of burning questions. She's funny, she's beautiful, and she's the best PR rep that any supervillain can ask for. It's the one, the only, Tiffie Starchild.
So,
welcome, hun.
Thank you.
I
Thank
do
you for
want to
having me.
make clear, though, because we're actually clarifying the format, right? It doesn't mean that we skip out on the format altogether, right? Of course, right? Of course, right.
Of course.
So, podcast listeners, what are we nerding out about this week? As a reminder, you can nerd out about all kinds of things, okay? Dr. Jamal Bryant did not in the Target boycott. Mark Wayne Mullen, a registered member of the Cherokee tribe, is absolutely a glass cliff hire. And Tiffie has convinced me that Maleficent isn't a villain. So why don't we start with our guest? Tiffie, what are you nerding out about?
Oh, I just want to clarify. Maleficent is a villain, but she was made that way, and everything that she did was justified. And I'm talking original villain from the original Sleeping Beauty. The insult of not inviting her to a party, Renaissance time, when that was based around, super insulting. You're not going to invite everybody in the kingdom to the party and not me, and then expect me not to crash out at your event. So jot that down first and foremost. It was the disrespect all along the way. And if you want to talk about the Angelina Jolie live action Maleficent, that's super easy. That one, King Stefan, deserved everything that he had coming to him. That's really simple.
Fight that man. I will fight that man with everything I have.
No argument here. No argument here.
I'm tired of people not dying in movies. So when like he died and fell to his death, I was just like, yeah, her. I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
So that was something that I will nerd about forever, a bad man dying. So that makes
There's
me
something
happy.
cathartic about that.
Truly.
Wow. Beautiful. I what I will nerd out about is slightly different from that, but only very slightly, because I am not going to tell you the ending of this movie that I just seen, but a friend of mine has been EP on this one indie movie, Straight On Till Morning. And listen, it is the queer horror movie that I didn't know that I was missing, but like it's sitting there just being like, hey, love is scary. Love makes you do all kinds of things that may or may not be appreciated by other people, but you were doing whatever it is that you were doing out of love, okay? Like, it is, first off, the main characters, the Bechdel test is being passed left, right, center, okay? Also, the protagonists are not stupid. Like, I know that there's like a whole bunch of horror movies where like you have protagonists who are just like, you expect them to be like, why the fuck aren't you running out the way that you're supposed to? My God, none of them do anything that I consider to be stupid. You can absolutely see how like there's like, I'm doing this thing and this is the kind of thing that I would do. And I'm so excited about it, okay? So it is on Amazon Prime right now, okay? Straight On Till Morning. And make sure that you were getting that Also, side note, I do know one of the producers of the film, so, maybe if we ask very nicely, we could possibly get somebody to come and say hey and tell us about horror stories. Who knows? Anyway, and what are you nerding out about?
Well, recently I attended the special fan Marvel Rivals event at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood. We had a majority of the voice actors as well as the production designers and stuff like that. Uh, got a few hints of stuff that's coming for Marvel Rivals for the new year. Apparently, in the lead up to Avengers Doomsday, the Marvel Rival game will be having new modules of different Avenger movies. So the first movie, Age of Ultron, the Infinity War, and so on. So all leading up
Hmm.
to Doomsday, and they did not show us any special footage or drop any real character things, but we do know that Loki will be getting his movie accurate costume in the coming months. So
Nice.
excited about that. I need to actually start playing the game more. I have not played in a while.
That's very cool, but I would like to point out the fact that the mouse is not quick to sit there and pretend that he doesn't exist. So, like, like, what kind of Mickey things are we getting? Like, do we have like are there things of that nature? Do we have It's a Small World kind of thing happening? Because I had the Mickey Mouse watch back in the day, and it absolutely played that song constantly.
I feel bad for any person who works at the park and has to listen to that song for their entire shift.
It's a small world after all. It's a small world.
So, Tiffy, any other things that you're nerding out about right now?
Well, I just learned that Sailor Moon is going to be at the Fan Fest at Universal Studios Hollywood, and I'm very excited about that because I love Sailor Moon. So definitely going to
Okay,
make it out there for that.
Are they making it like an entire section, or 'cause I haven't heard about this?
Yeah, so
girl.
apparently they're going to be showing the musical that was, I don't know if it's the one that was touring. It was at the other Universal Studios. I have to look up what exactly where the musical originated. It's not live, it's a showing of it in the theater space, I think the DreamWorks theater space. And then they're going to have specific merchandise and things like that. I want to go. I also want to go because I've never been to the Mario world. I need
Oh, you haven't
to.
done that yet?
No.
Oh my
I
god!
like
It's like I
going.
saw your Mario cosplay. I kind of assumed that you might have worn it
Oh
to
yeah,
Universal at some point.
I love Mario, but I don't like if I'm not going as media or press or as a content creator, I don't like going to things when they're
That is
new and when
fair.
they open. And it's literally the crowds. I am not a be in the sun and be
Wait,
in the crowds type of
hang on a
person.
second. I'm so sorry. Wasn't Mario Day, aka March 10th? Like, wasn't that like 2 minutes ago? What do you mean they didn't sit there and have you come in? Appropriate,
Oh no, I
unacceptable.
never, because there are a lot of reasons why, but don't worry, it is being rectified. Don't you worry.
Okay, you know what? Let's take a few minutes to, like, woosah and double check that it is in fact being rectified, and we'll be right back to Up Your Nerd Cred.
Welcome back. So, podcast listeners, as you know, anytime we bring on a guest, we always ask them what's something they would love to up your nerd cred about. Tiffy, as a pop culture icon, you had so many options to pick from super or sympathetic supervillains to the fashion of Bridgerton. But instead, you decided to take us on a trip to the most magical place on Earth, Disneyland.
Woo! Also, side note, I am given to understand that you recently celebrated your birthday at Disneyland,
Did.
right? All right,
Yeah.
so I need you to tell our listeners to a certain extent, like, what is it that made Disneyland the topic that you wanted to specifically, like, nerd out about and, like, get deep into the lore of?
Well, I don't know. I figured Disneyland is a place where I spend a lot of my time and I just have a lot of random knowledge of, and I've worked there for a while. So Disneyland is always on my mind. If I'm not at Disneyland, I'm probably editing some sort of Disneyland related content or I'm planning my next Disneyland trip. So it's easy to nerd out about Disneyland because it's always just kind of like at the forefront of my mind. Proud
Yeah.
Disney adult.
Mouse owns us. It owns a massive part of our souls.
I didn't say all that. I just really like spending my time at Disneyland.
Fair
That's
enough.
fair. Okay. So before we delve too deeply into the fun of Disneyland, let's give our listeners a little bit of the backstory for arguably one of the most recognizable brands and theme parks on Earth, right? Disneyland itself was named after the man himself, Walter Elias Disney. He's very fancy. Elias as a middle name is very fancy. I don't know, I'm being silly. But he was born on December 5th, 1901. So that means that he is a Sagittarius. Walt was an American animator. He was a voice actor. He was a film producer. He was an entrepreneur. And he built a global empire based on childhood whimsy, fairy tales, capitalism, and the mouse.
Disney started his career as a commercial illustrator before taking a big interest in animation and film. After moving to Hollywood in July of 1923 and losing creative control and the rights of his proto-mascot, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, in 1928. So in 1928, Walt created the iconic Mickey Mouse, and the Disney Company was born. What started with a long line of animated shorts named his Silly Symphony series, Walt eventually expanded his creativity to the golden age of animation, starting with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which was released in December of 1937. This film became the most successful motion picture of 1938 and grossing $6.5 million, which back in the 30s was next level. Walt used his increased presence in Hollywood to really build his entertainment empire, expanding beyond animation to live action, television, and more. And then in the 1950s, Walt decided to build again, but this time in a more tangible way. He was going into the theme park business. Over the next 5 years, the Walt Disney Company designed and constructed their first theme park under the strict direction of Walt himself. And then on July 17th, 1955, the gates to Disneyland were open to the world.
Would like to note that my mom likes to point out how close it is in age that she is to Disneyland, because she wants to sit there and be like, "Oh, look, it's like my age." And I'm just like, "Mom, why are you highlighting how old you are? Like, Disneyland is a completely different thing." Anyway, you know what? We're not talking about my mom. What we are talking about is the fact that we are very specifically talking about Disneyland, okay? There's another park in Orlando or whatever, but Florida's government's active hostility to honestly everyone, right? It's
Mm.
kind of the reason why they're not really getting my tourism dollars, okay? They're kind of on timeout, and you can get them again when you act right, okay? Now, having said that, I have only been to Disneyland in California 3 or 4 times in my life. Now, it was definitely easier when I was living in California than, as I'm living here in NYC, but even then, I was living in the Bay, so I was only kind of able to get there. But y'all are out in the LA area, though, and probably have a chance to go in a way that allows you to live the life of Disney adults that the rest of us actively dream of. So, before I get too jealous, when did the Disneyland first hit you? And how has it been to be able to wear your mouse ears in the park whenever you want and not just whenever you happen to be in your room hanging out by yourself?
You gotta chill. I'm gonna let you know, right? You gotta chill with all that's wild.
My
I
mouse
keep telling
ears
her
are
she needs
so
to come out here.
cool. My mouse
She
ears
needs
are
to come
so
out here.
cool, but I can't, really wear them in the park because there's no park on the East Coast except for that one that we're not talking about. So tell me about your experience. Let me live vicariously, please.
It's pretty great. I go to Disneyland often. I grew up going to Disneyland. I'm actually from San Diego. And so for me, Disneyland is a good hour and a half away. I grew up going to Disneyland probably once a year, always on my birthday. And as a kid, it's not that I ever took it for granted. It's more that as an adult, I realized what a sacrifice that was because we didn't have it like that as a family. So I understand as an adult that my mom definitely made sacrifices to get my entire family out for Disneyland trips. My brother, my dad, myself, herself. Like that was a privilege to be able to experience that. And then I worked at Disneyland for 6 years. I worked in Tomorrowland. I was a tour guide. And then I've had the privilege of since no longer working there after I chose to leave Disneyland, now I get to create content with Disney often, and sometimes I get invited to the park with Disney, and then I also enjoy the park just as a pass holder. I am there several times a month. It is my favorite third space to be because it offers entertainment and access to really good food and rides and characters and whimsy, and it's great. It's awesome. It's a fashion show each time. It's a chance to show off outfits. It's great for content. I love to shop at Disneyland. I am a merchandise person, and that is how I live my adult life. It's great.
I
So,
absolutely
real
love that.
quick then, can you point with one finger yet, or are you still doing like the whole hand situation?
It was never whole hand for me. It was the two-finger point, and
Mhm.
I have broken the curse. I am able to point with one finger. Dobby is
Yeah.
free. Oh, we don't do
As a
that part.
Nightcrawler cosplayer,
Disney is
I have
free.
not broken that.
Yeah. It did take years. It was over 10 years of double pointing.
And how about you?
Well, with me, military brat, so we were moving constantly. But one thing that my parents always loved was taking us to Disney. It was like that one thing we would do every couple of years. We'd either go to California, where my grandparents were living at the time, or we'd go down to Florida for, the world. And it was always a fun tradition because, we'd always have our specific things we would do. My mom always wanted family silhouettes, which we still do to this day. On Main
Oh,
Street, we get
yeah.
our silhouettes cut out, and
It's very
my dad
cute,
would
by
always
the
wanna
way.
do, like, the tiki room and stuff like that. So but then, moved out here to California and particularly LA, and my roommate at the time, she was insistent that we had to get me a Disney pass and was constantly at the parks, absolutely loved it, obsessed with it. Unfortunately, I did let my pass lapse during the pandemic, and I have not brought it back yet, but still hitting things up like the Pride Night this last year was fantastic, and very excited for the new expansions that they're going to be doing. They've announced a whole bunch of new things. The Avengers campus is going to grow again, so yeah, been a major part. Been buying stuff all the time whenever I was able to go there, like Tiffy. So I really need to go back again. It's been a little while. I'm starting to get the shakes.
Not the
I
Wow.
need like
Okay.
a $20 churro.
See, and people talk about me living in New York being too expensive, and yet the $20 churro.
So one thing that Uncle Walt used to say was that Disneyland would never be completed. And that's a pretty fair statement. Like I was saying, they've been making all these changes. When the park first opened, when the park first opened, it was designed as a series of themed lands linked by Central Main Street, USA, a replica of the Main Street from its hometown of Marceline. The original areas were Adventureland, Frontierland, Fantasyland, Tomorrowland. But as the decades have passed, the park has changed a lot, and old attractions have been updated or replaced entirely. And we've had entirely new lands added, like New Orleans Square, Mickey's Toontown, Bayou Country, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and there's even the sister park, California Adventure, with the Avengers Campus and Pixar Pier. CiCi, you've only had experience with modern Disney. What did you think about the park as a newbie? Which, is your favorite land or ride?
All right, look, honestly, the only ride that matters for me is the Tower of Terror. Okay. Now, yes, I know technically it's the Guardians of the Galaxy thing now, and that's fine. I accept this. But in my heart, in my truest heart, that is the Tower of Terror. Okay. Like, I am actually actively sad that I cannot get more Hollywood Tower Hotel merchandise because my dad's got the mug from it. And I'm just like, why didn't I grab something before I figured out that they were going to change things? Also, just completely separate, they need more drop rides overall. I love drop rides, right? But also, my kid absolutely hated the car race section. It might be because I put him in the driver's seat when he was like 2, and he's just like, "Why are you making me drive a car?" And I'm just like, "Sir, I drive you all around, and you can't sit there and drive me for 2 seconds? Rude." Side note, Avengers Tower, you said that was in California Avengers, right? Pretty much where I wanna spend all of my time is Avengers Tower, especially because, not gonna lie, Loki hangs out there, Thor hangs out there, Black Widow hangs out there, and watching Spider-Man kind of fall into a big old pile is kind of hilarious because Zendaya's husband is very, very confused about a lot of things sometimes.
Meanwhile, Tiffy, you've probably seen the big changes over the years as a reoccurring Disney fan. Any major changes that were like heartbreaking for you or that you were super excited about? Also, your favorite rides and attractions or area?
Ooh, we could talk about this for a long time. So things that I'm heartbroken that are not there anymore. Fast passes that were free because now you have to pay for
Preach.
lightning lane passes, and that's some bullshit. I miss
Hmm.
when we did not have to make reservations to go into the park, especially because if I'm paying for annual pass and I don't make it a certain amount of times if I forget to. So the deal is if you have to make a reservation to get into the park. That's already annoying. So say I have a reservation for tomorrow, but then something comes up tomorrow and I can't go. That's like a strike on my record. And if you get 3 within a certain amount of time, you can't make a reservation for 30 days. And I'm like, if those are the rules, fine. Does that mean that you're not taking a payment for 30 days? No, it doesn't. And I don't like that. So I miss when we didn't have that bullshit because that only came around after COVID. And I'm like, hey, we're no longer in COVID times. Why don't we get rid of this whack ass policy? But they don't want to hear my ideas. I
Hmm.
do miss,
I
let me see,
completely
the
agree.
park. There was a period of time when the park was not that dope, but then Disneyland became cool again, quote unquote cool. People are always gonna dunk on Disney adults and whatever, but like,
Yeah,
yeah, who cares? But
Disney
Disneyland
adults are
in
amazing.
general,
Okay, so
like, who's gonna tell me what to do with my money? Like, who's gonna stop me? Exactly.
correct,
Exactly.
correct.
So Disneyland and Disney went through like this period of not being cool. Then it saw this resurgence of being cool again. And it didn't just have to do with the movies. It was just in pop culture and like that it girl or that Disney girl look. So as people started to become more involved in social media and in the fashion and things that you could do at Disneyland and Dapper Day and the different themed days, and there were ways to share more of how people were experiencing Disneyland that weren't strictly within Disney guidelines or what Disneyland provided. It's always been about community. So I always find that super, super dope about Disney. There are days that I go and don't ride any rides whatsoever. My favorites will always be It's a Small World, especially since they did the refurb years ago. I promise you, somebody showed up with a bag of rhinestones and a glue gun, and they were like, I'm here for the refurbishment. Which way would you like me to go? Because everything is sparkly. Everything is sparkly. It is so beautiful. Something that I wish that they kept around from like way back when days of Disney. Ariel. Pixie Hollow is a great area. It is so cute. They
Yes.
shrink you down to fairy size and you walk around and you meet Tinkerbell. You used to be able to meet the other fairy friends as well. Before it was Pixie Hollow, you got to meet Ariel. And it was Ariel in her tail. So she there was a giant clamshell that was there, and the mists would go off from the sides and the clam would rotate, and there Ariel would be sitting and you would be able to meet her. You would just have to pose because she would only be able to sit and kind of lean into you, but that was the
Dang,
classic way of meeting Ariel.
girl,
Remember that.
she ain't got no
I went
legs.
there one time when they still had
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so that mechanism of the clamshell turning was how she went from being backstage to being on stage. They replaced that with Tinkerbell and the teapot that she lives in, and it's very cool. I love Pixie Hollow. I love Tinkerbell, but that Ariel in her tail was an elite Disney experience. It was so good. So good.
Look,
Ugh,
I'm
yeah,
still
no.
mad that I've never been able to go to the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique because I've been like, it's been great for my niece. She's had some amazing pictures over the course of times, but I haven't been able to do that because, they didn't really put it in for grown-ass folks. Anyway, you know what? We're not going to talk about that. What we're going to talk
They'll still
about
put
is
pixie
how,
dust on you if you want.
That's what I used to do as a tour guide. And one of the things that I did when I was there, if you look at the 2014 Disneyland, they used to put out a vacation DVD. And I don't think that they do it anymore. So it's very cool to have done something that went into the Disney Vault, but I had to do a lot of interviews for it. And they basically selected me to represent Disneyland. And it's on YouTube. The segment still lives on there, but they just basically had me talk about Disneyland and the things that I do to make my day magical. And I would literally carry a little jar. I ordered little jars off of Etsy, and I filled it with 3 different types of Martha Stewart glitter because I was very particular about how my pixie dust looked, and I would use it at work to sprinkle on people. I would ask the parents, of course, but you're gonna have a great day. I'm just gonna use a little bit of pixie dust. Not enough to make you fly because that's so much paperwork, but you're gonna have a good day today. And that's how I would move as a tour guide. My bosses did not like it because I left a trail of glitter, but that's also how people knew that I was on the clock. They're like, is Tiffy here? There's glitter. She's here today. And I just wouldn't stop. I would just use glitter because why wouldn't I do this magical thing? So people
That's
still
honestly
find me
brilliant.
from that video. And I repost it every once in a while on my socials, but like that's my contribution to Disneyland legacy. But
I absolutely love that. That's
Okay.
so cute.
But what I will say, the whole like there's like a trail of pixie dust all over the fact, there is the part that like Disneyland did actually work really hard to make sure, like, you know, with their Imagineers, right? They worked really hard to make sure that there's a lot of hidden secrets and surprises and stuff. So, like, if they're seeing you, like, leave a trail that leads to where, like, the employees are sneaking into things and blah, 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 they might get a little bit upset. But, like, one of the things that they have, like, in the park, hidden Mickeys, right? Like, you can just sit there and just be wandering around and just be like, hang on a second. I'm pretty sure that is not just some random bit of brickwork. That is a Mickey Mouse. So I need everybody to sit there and talk about beyond just like the whole like, place some surprise brickwork or oh, like there's a weird like, you know, bit of thatching or whatever. Like there's a bunch of hidden Mickeys throughout the entire thing. So like how are people supposed to look for and find them?
well, you could go about it any way that you want to. You can ask cast members. Any cast member working any location at Disneyland knows the hidden Mickeys in their location. It's not an official Disneyland thing that they teach you. It is something that you simply absorb because they are everywhere. They are part of the Disney culture, attractions and structures that have been there for forever have hidden Mickeys, and the Imagineers do include them when they create new attractions. So there's always hidden Mickeys, and they're literally just that. Is 3 circles that make up a Mickey head. And for example, there are super tiny ones. One of the tiniest ones in the park are on the resort property is hidden. There's a candy store that is on Buena Vista Street in California Adventure in DCA. And in that, it's a scale model of Candy Mountain. It looks like Matterhorn and it's all candy and sweets. It's in the window. If you go inside of that store and look in a very specific place into the mountain, you'll see a little tiny candy snowman with a tiny Mickey hat on. And I promise you, those Mickey ears are that big. That's a tiny hidden Mickey. There's a huge hidden Mickey. I'll tell you where to find the biggest hidden Mickey. The Astro Orbiter. If you're in Disneyland and you're looking at Tomorrowland, the Astro Orbiter, it's the rocket ride that spins round and round. As the rockets spin, they have different planetary structures that also orbit and spin. So every once in a while, 3 of those planets will align to create a Mickey head. So they're secret, they're painted in. If you're on an attraction and you're in the line, look at the walls, look at the details. It's one of the things that makes Disneyland so cool and so different from other theme parks. Knott's has different stuff going on. Universal has different stuff going on. Six Flags has a lot of thrill rides. Disneyland has an attention to detail like you would not believe. Look at the light structures. You could literally look everywhere to find little pockets of magic, and not just hidden Mickeys. There's something called what was it? Is it the Littlest Man of Disneyland, the Tiny Man of Disneyland? It's a very old Disneyland story, but it's about a little leprechaun man who lives at Disneyland, and Disneyland was kind of built around him. And it's a very old story. No one knows this story. But if you go into Adventureland, there's a place you can go and you can see his little house because they made his house for this story that nobody knows, the little man at Disneyland. So that's the magic that you spoke of, that Imagineers just create.
Yeah.
Putting some
it's kinda
respect
funny,
on the Fae is not a bad idea. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page about that. So the little man, leprechaun, the wee folk of Ireland are, you know, a very interesting bunch of folks. But let me tell you, as an aside, one of my kids' favorite ride was like the the adventure one. So finding out that he was sitting there just like running the hidden Mickeys is so exciting for me.
You know,
I'm super
so
hyped,
something that's
but he
fun
was
about
very
the,
little.
hidden Mickeys, there's
Yeah.
something I was reading about. Apparently, they were done as a way for the Imagineers to circumvent, the people in charge at Epcot. So, when they were building Epcot, they were not allowed to have any of the characters running around originally. They didn't wanna have anything really involving, like, Mickey and his friends, and apparently a lot of the Imagineers were just like, "Alright, we're gonna take that as a challenge." And so they started adding Mickey to different parts in the attraction as like hidden things. And people started searching for them in the parks. Eventually they did bring the characters in. And then they started doing it in all the other parks too. They started to add in all the hidden Mickeys a lot more.
Yeah, that seems right. The Imagineers are known for having all sorts of interesting things that they are putting together for
I just feel like that applies to Disney creators in general. I mean, we all remember that infamous Little Mermaid cover.
beyond the Little Mermaid cover. I would just like to point out that there's a whole bunch of stuff that we're not able to see as the public that the Disney animators have done. So we're not going to talk about that anymore. We're going to shift to things that are slightly more wholesome than the porn that Disney creators have made.
So, yeah, so something a lot of people don't realize is that despite how massive Disneyland might feel, especially when you're a kid, the park is actually pretty limited in space at only 85 acres, I believe, for the main park. But to get around that, Disney has used an assortment of tricks to make the park feel more massive. There's been stuff like forced perspective or designing things with certain sizes. Tiff, you used to work at Disney. You probably know a lot of like those little tricks that they use to make the park look so much more massive.
Yeah, my favorite one to talk about is the forced perspectives trick on Main Street. One of the things to remember, especially for people that are more familiar with Florida, with Orlando and Disney World, that park is massive. It is
Mm.
huge. So Disneyland being the original park, it has a lot of charm. It's going to always be my home park and my preference, but it's smaller because they had less space to work with. All the other parks, they're like, okay, we know what we're doing now. We have more land. We can make this thing bigger and better. So with Disneyland, they had to kind of create these tricks to make things appear bigger. On Main Street, part of that is with this idea of forced perspective, of making the windows appear smaller on the second floors of the building, making everything appear just a little bit shorter because it gives the illusion that it's further away and that the buildings are taller. Or
Mm.
even like with the castle, it appears further away when you're coming into the park. It's this thing to attain to. I am trying to get to that castle down there. And then they're also doing things in the atmosphere. They're literally pumping out the smell of the waffle cones from the ice cream shop as you're walking down Main Street to get you in there. You said capitalism, you're right about that, and they're going to get my money every time. So there's that. That same walk when you're leaving the park, when you're tired, you're just trying to get to the car, you're trying to go home. They made that appear short as a mercy to everybody. Like, we know that you don't want to get discouraged looking at this long ass walk leaving the park. So we're going to make this appear shorter when you're walking away from the castle than it is when you're walking towards the castle. Same street, but depending on the direction you're walking in, it appears to be a different length. So that is one of the examples of forced perspective.
I've seen something where they also will do things where like they will kind of paint buildings that are like housing some of the bigger rides. They'll paint them in views that are like not quite sky blue, but something that is almost skyish. So when you are looking directly on it, it kind of looks like it's more of just like another part of the sky, when in fact it's actually a full ass warehouse holding a whole ride and such. Because I'm not gonna lie, some of these big ass rides that we are on, like, they seem so much bigger when you were actually in there, in part because as you're getting up to it, all of like the forced perspective, all of the paint jobs that they do, all of the things that they are doing is intended to keep you from like actually like realizing how big things are. So you don't actually notice the fact that you are, standing in a very long line to go hang out in a closed off warehouse if you're going on like I don't like,
Haunted
I
Mansion.
don't know if they have a Spaceship Earth in Disneyland,
We
but,
don't have
like,
a
what is the
spaceship
big
Earth,
one? What is the big
but
one
no,
in
no,
Disneyland?
Indiana Jones is a good example of that, and Haunted Mansion is a really good example because everyone's familiar with that elevator that you take.
Mhm.
It is true. It appears that the room is stretching. You're in an elevator going down, and then that hallway that has all of the portraits that change, and you're walking to a warehouse essentially. You're not going through that mansion that's there. You're walking to a warehouse that you can probably see from the streets of Anaheim if you're driving by. And you can. There are certain buildings, if you know what to look for. That's one of the rides. That's one of the rides. That's one of the rides. And they are very, very good at disguising it. You did reference the Walt Disney Imagineering wall that's in Toontown. That's one of them that they paint to look like just a scene. It could be just in the back of Toontown. It blends in very well, and it also hides the backstage area, the offices, and where the rides themselves are contained. So it's pretty cool. I will say Space Mountain, you're really up in that. So that's one that you are actually occupying that space because it goes down into the earth and then up into that little sphere thing or that little spire. But
It's very cool.
Matterhorn, you're really in, obviously. All the mountains, you're really going
Yeah,
around
it's
and
kind
you're
of hard
really
to like
in.
do a warehouse with those
Yeah, I
situations.
can't fake those ones.
One thing
Matterhorn
that was
is a lot of fun, especially if you can go on like the single ride ones. I'm just gonna say that like if you can just go on the single ride ones. I know it's more fun to go with your friends, but go on the single ride ones. You can get in, get out, get on with life. It's so much fun.
Single
yeah,
rider is the way to go.
one thing that I also was reading about was how a lot of the park areas do not go in a straight line. Apparently, they're like very wavy and curvy to kind of like hide pieces of the park and make it feel like bigger when you clear that corner, sort of thing.
The idea transitioning from any one part of the park to the other, like going from Frontierland to Adventureland or Fantasyland into Tomorrowland, is that you should not be able to see one part of the park from the other. When you're in Fantasyland, you are in this Renaissance-y fantasy area. When you're in Tomorrowland, you are in the future. So it's not so much about maximizing the space as it is keeping the magic to that area. When you're here, the sights, the sounds, the music that's in the background, everything is going to lend itself to that. You're going to hear jungle sounds at Adventureland. It's going to be dry and desolate over at Frontierland. I hate Frontierland. But so
Surprised that part is still like there. I kind of imagined it would have like been switched out for something else.
Listen, if it helps, I low key don't like Animal Kingdom over at Disney World, but that's because my experience over there was just like a glorified zoo experience. I'm just like, I am super happy that I have a park capper for this. But I feel like it's worth noting that
They
the
do have the
mouse is always
area now, so that's got to be an improvement, I imagine.
watching us though. I feel
Yeah,
very comfortable
as
with that.
family friendly and magical as Disney can be, it's very hard to get away with anything there. The mouse is, as you said, always watching, and we've heard stories about the inappropriate or weird things that have happened in the park. Many of them, oddly enough, on the Haunted Mansion. That one seems to draw in a lot of the weird. Any favorite urban legends or true stories you guys want to share?
I know urban legends and true stories,
Yes, please.
but
Listen,
but
all I
I
know is that they can actually see you on the haunted mansion and that people be
Mhm.
doing some all kinds of nasty stuff there that they don't need to be.
There are cameras everywhere, and the ones that don't have the ones that don't have cameras, you can get away with a lot, and I won't say which ones those are. So, but just
Thank you for not.
assume
We would very much appreciate Mickey not coming and, like, trying to have a conversation with
exactly.
us
Oh,
'cause
no, no,
I'd be
no.
cussing out Kevin Feige on a regular basis. I don't need the mouse coming down on us.
Yeah, no, I think that one's just gonna stay in the vault. Some Disney secrets, like I love social media, but I also believe in gatekeeping some things. Some of my best Disney secrets the world will never know because then it's no longer a secret. Then it's no longer a hack or whatever. I'll never let y'all know that stuff. But yeah, assume that you can be seen if you're trying to do something weird at Disneyland. And also, why are you trying to do something weird at Disneyland? Stop being fucking weird. So,
Mhm.
I mean, look,
I still think
if you're going to be
the one that sticks
go
with me
ahead.
is always the stories of people dropping the ashes of their family on the Haunted Mansion. It's just like,
That's a big one.
you
If you
do
want your
realize
family to get it vacuumed up,
exactly, because it's like, they're gonna clean that up. It's not gonna stay there.
mm-mm.
Bio-waste is not something that we can just be dropping off all over the place, even if it is, like, theoretically, like, sanitary because of the fact that it is ashes.
Fire.
Absolutely not. Absolutely
I
not.
still don't want to be breathing in somebody's grandma while I'm enjoying
I
my
know,
time at
yeah.
the park.
Nana's gonna be in hoovered up, so if that's how you want to do her.
I mean, realistically speaking, also, the main thing that I heard about was just like, the cameras and such being everywhere because apparently people be nasty. And I'm just like, but for why? Isn't this a family park? Like, what are y'all doing? You ain't even being nasty, like, after, like, the extended hours, like, inappropriate.
I've heard that they regularly will stop the ride and call them out when they're doing something like that. Is that true?
To my knowledge, it depends on who's working and what's happening. It depends. I've worked with leads that will let the people ride the whole ride and be waiting there at the exit for them with security or with a washcloth and a spray bottle. Hey, why don't you go ahead and clean that up?
Whatever
There are
works.
times that they've called them out over speakers. So it really there probably is a Disney policy on how to handle that, but it depends on who's in charge that day.
Fair
Truly.
enough. Because I was kind of curious. It's like, what is the policy for that sort of situation?
Let's bring up a little bit of the elephant in the room, okay? Because people are being nasty in LA, but LA or Anaheim, but Anaheim's not the only place that people be nasty at, okay? So we've got like a whole bunch of like different sister parks where people can be very embarrassing at a family location, okay? Like we've got Disney World that we don't talk about because like Florida being on some ridiculous shit, right? We got like Disneyland Paris, we got Disneyland Hong Kong, we got like Disneyland Tokyo. Have you guys actually managed to go to any of the other parks? Are there any other Disney experiences, Disney locations besides Disneyland that anyone has any good experiences with? How
Tiffy?
do they hold up?
Yeah, I went to Disney World like as a kid and that was cool. Back when they had like the really for real alien encounter before it became the Stitch alien encounter, when it was
Mm.
truly terrifying. Like that was when I was there. And then
I
I
never got to
went
go to that one.
recently. That the fact that that ride was at a Disney park is absolutely insane. I understand why they switched it to Stitch to make it
Mhm.
less fucking terrifying, but
But
that is a loss because that was crazy imagineering. You're in a room. You're in a room and it's like, "Oh, we have an alien specimen." And it's like a presentation and you're seated and you're strapped in and it's almost like, like college things. It's like the tiered seating, but it's not as big as
mhm.
a college room. And in the center is this tube. It's empty. As the show starts, the lights go down, the thing fills up with fog. The alien from like the alien movies is inside and he's banging on the glass. The lights start glitching out. The crack appears in the glass and oh no, the lights are out. It's mostly dark. The sounds, and it's a spatial experience. So you're hearing yelling over here and yelling over here and oh my God, he's escaped. He's running around and all of the things that you're strapped in with are pressing. So like it feels and sounds like he's running around the room and that he presses on your shoulders. Remember, you're in the dark at this time. Also, I'm 10 years old as this is happening. And then some guy goes, "Oh no, he's eating me." Ah! And then they spray water down on you from above. So it's like his blood is spraying down on you. This was a ride at a Disneyland park.
For
Okay,
kids.
see, you know what?
That was Disney
I'm gonna
World.
say that like my experience with Muppets 4D was not nearly as terrifying, although there was the whole situation where like you have the 3D glasses on and there was some like fish that was like all up in your personal space. All up in your personal space. Like
No,
I don't know if
this was
I'm
no 3D
expressing
glasses, no screens. This was all practical effects. It was the most terrifying thing. No screens.
nope.
No
Nope,
screens.
I heard
absolutely
that
not.
even when they
Muppets
updated
in
to
4D was enough.
I heard when they
Absolutely
updated it to
not.
Stitch, it was still scaring kids.
That's what I heard as well, but I'm just like, these children are soft. They know nothing. You don't
Yeah, they don't know
know
the trauma that you
terror. You
experienced.
don't know terror. Oh
No.
my, find a old grainy YouTube video of this. I
You
know it
guys,
exists.
I wanted to
y'all
go to
think
that
that
one, and
Stitch
then
is
when
serious? Go ahead. I was gonna say, like, y'all think that Stitch is serious? I took my kid to the Buzz Lightyear one. That child spent the majority of the Buzz Lightyear experience crying his eyes out. He was just like, please let me get out of this because it was all very scary. I feel like we should put a little bit more respect on some of like the terror that these babies be, dealing with on that end. Cause we are adults.
I really wanted to go on the alien escape thing. When we finally got to go to Disney World, that they'd already shut down the ride. They were
Mm-hmm.
already switching it over to whatever they were going to plan to do because I guess it was just too scary for everyone. And then the Stitch one just kind of fell apart. That one didn't even get like a proper send off, from what I understood.
Rude.
But yeah. But yeah,
All
it's like
right.
I've
Well,
done Disney World myself. That was always fun. We only did it a couple of times when I was a kid. Most recent time was like the year after the pandemic ended,
mhm.
and I caught COVID at Disney World.
Ooh.
See,
Yeah, the
this is why
last
we
few
don't get
days at the park were just miserable. I did not catch COVID the entire pandemic, and then I go to Disney World. It's like that's not fair. I was masked up and everything, and nope.
right. So we're going to take a quick break to talk about how bad the pandemic was for Disney World, Disneyland, and all of the other jazz. And we will be back with our thrilling conclusion.
And welcome back to our thrilling conclusion. So we've had fun talking about Disneyland, the Disneyland parks, but it does kind of feel like we've only touched on the surface about all the hidden details and all the craziness that can happen there. There's a lot of work that gets put into making the parks magical, and they certainly make you pay for it with souvenirs and food and. But Tiffy, it's still worth it, right?
Absolutely. I think that for me, I have a balance. I like to go to Disneyland. I also really like to go to concerts and things that have nothing to do with Disney. But there are people where that is where they spend all of their free time or all of their, extra money or whatever they want. I like that it's a safe place. I think this world is crazy. So I think that to have a place that literally encourages you to be as childish, not immature, not harmful, but to really nurture that inner child and what you loved as a kid or maybe weren't safe enough to explore as a kid. You can do that as an adult. So at the heart of it all, I fuck with Disneyland because it's a dope place to be a kid again. And I think that makes it worth it.
I'm going to point out that, look, I don't get to go to Disneyland like y'all get to, okay? Even when I was in California, I was up in the Bay, so it's not like it's, like a hop, skip, and a jump for me. But I do have my Sailor Moon Disney ears because Disney is important to me, all right? I'm wearing like my Gay Days Disney shirt because going with AM was something that like we were actually able to do when it is that we were both in California together. And there is a lot to be said about just having kind of the base Disney experience of just going and riding the Tomorrowland and seeing your kid on the spinning cups is so cool. And it's nice to, feel like we're able to grow as adults and see what happens next and all that jazz.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same mindset. It's like Disney has so many great memories for me. Memories of family, of friends. It's built a community. I bonded with so many people over like Disneyland and Disney stuff. And yeah, it's still worth it. Every time I get to go, I have an amazing time. Always puts a smile on my face, and especially like Tiffy said, with how crazy it's been, it's nice to get that kind of escape sometimes.
Well, if we're going to talk about escapes, I feel like we should probably like highlight some of the things that are happening in our multiverse. So, a couple of things that should be on your calendar. On March 14th, we have the birthday of Selena Kyle, aka the Catwoman. So, make sure that you keep that in mind. But if you're trying to find a more real life experience to put on your calendar, Naoko Takeuchi, the creator of Sailor Moon, who my ears are in honor of, right? Her birthday is March 15th. So we're going to put some respect on that lady's name because that is Naoko Takuchi is the reason why there are a lot more girls who are into anime than there might have been in the past, okay? So, moving forward, we also have Todd McFarlane, who is the co-creator of Venom, but the creator of Spawn. His birthday is March 16th. So, we also got to put a little respect on that man's name too, because Michael J. White really needed that job, and so did John Leguizamo at the time. Actually, let's be honest. Anyway, moving forward, Barry Allen, the Flash of Earth 1 pre-crisis. His birthday is officially March 19th as well. So look at all these Pisces babies running around and everything, because they're not quite Aries yet. We're still in Pisces season, so realistically speaking, we're not going to talk about Naoko Takuchi or Selena Kyle, but I have heard some stuff about Pisces men, so you got to be careful with all of them. So Todd, Barry, do better. I don't even know what it is that we need them to do better about, but we'll figure it out. Listeners, we have, though, come to the end of our podcast. I know, how is it over so soon? Well, good news. Our next episode will be coming out next week. You're also more than welcome to listen to this episode again if that's not fast enough. Or, of course, you can join our Patreon and you can, get that. You can get solo scripts, behind-the-scenes footage, things like that.
Nerd Cred takes time to build.
But the operators of the cameras can see you being nasty in Mr. Toad's Wild Ride too, okay? It's a family park.
And now it's time to mention we have an Instagram. We're on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and working on expanding our reach. If you like the episode, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe, especially if you're trying to up your nerd cred. Tiffy, where can our listeners find you?
You can find me on TikTok. I'm on YouTube, Instagram. I'm on Twitch as well. Everything is Tiffi Starchild, TIFFIEs.
Listen, I would like to remind you that, I've been following her since, she started with, the villain PR, and she's only gotten better since then, okay? So if you're not following her, you are incorrect. You could follow us on Instagram at Up Your Nerd Cred Pod. If you're looking for me specifically across socials, I am at Kira C. Davis, CIRACDAVIS.
And I am at AM Diaz on all platforms. Or AM Diaz Art. Come yell at me about continuity errors or show me your fan art, either way. Tiffy, thank you so much for joining us. We really loved having you. You were amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Fangirling so hard and trying to be cool and failing.
All right. And if you, the listeners, have any burning questions that you want us to discuss, so you can up your nerd cred, make sure you like and subscribe, leave comments, and we'll pick out your questions and shout you out in the discussion area.
We've also launched the Patreon, and you should definitely follow the link in the show notes to join it. And while you're at it, you should get your friends to like and subscribe too, and your family members and your coworkers who you trust not to be weird about listening to the same podcast as you. And are there any Disney
and good night, everybody.